Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the start of the college football season is 1 week and 1 day away. Week 0 is so close, you can almost smell the UTEP versus New Mexico State, I think, is on the game. I think that's one of those War for I-10 games. So, if you can't get excited for UTEP, New Mexico State, I don't think we can be friends anymore.
I was talking to Mark a couple weeks back. We were discussing who's going where for week 2, or I guess week 3 of the high school football season, whichever it would be when week 0 of college football starts. And I'm like, it doesn't matter, just as long as I'm back home on Saturday to watch Nebraska and Illinois. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Everybody's going to be watching it, and then you're going to sit there and you're like, I am really excited for Nebraska, Illinois. What has gone wrong? And it's like, well, it's been a rough year for everybody. But also, remember, we used to get psyched up for South Carolina games every year because they would open on Thursday or whatever. And it's like, yay, South Carolina, I can't wait. And then after a quarter, it becomes like the Ohio State spring game. You're like, well, I guess it's like childbirth. You forget how bad it is, and that's why you're able to do it again. If you kept in mind how terrible it was, you'd never have more kids for the women, of course. Also, it's terrible for men as well. We know that. But anyway, yes, I am very much looking forward to it. And it's a remarkably big game for both programs, and we'll get into that in some upcoming shows. But don't sleep on that one. That's a big one, especially if Scott Frost loses.
Yeah, that is Scott Frost has some stuff going on at Nebraska now, which is not ideal. And if you're a coach who's on the hot seat-ish, you don't want to give a school an opportunity to not pay you your full buyout because you maybe have some NCAA stuff lingering, even if the NCAA stuff is kind of that's probably not the biggest deal in the history of the world. But yeah, that is for a game that's between a team that is 5-7, was 3-6 last year, and a team that fired its head coach and is, a perpetual doormat in the Big Ten West and starting from scratch, even from that level. That is a shockingly big game. It's I feel like we're going to know a lot about Nebraska depending on which way that game goes.
Yeah. And so today's show, we're going to do some listener questions. I sent out the signal a while ago for some questions. We got a bunch in. So we're going to go through those. We won't go through all of them, so we'll save some for a future episode as well. But Tom, are you ready to go? Should we get going?
I am. Let's start with what everyone wants to talk about. It's football season's almost here. Let's talk COVID protocols. Tony at El Suzabo, has the Big Ten released any COVID protocols, or Ohio State? I've heard nothing.
As of this recording, there's been nothing that I recall from the Big Ten. We remember at Big Ten Media Days, Kevin Warren said something to the effect of, we're going to let all of the schools send some stuff back to us, and then we'll go from there. And it was that's not really a plan. That's just, you're just you're doing stuff to doing stuff. You're just moving stuff around. And so, no, Ohio State hasn't really said anything other than no masks outside of Ohio Stadium, or inside Ohio Stadium, out in the outdoors, but yes, masks in the bathroom. And so there's little stuff like that. But in terms of the football program, the last word I heard is that the football program wouldn't be treated, or the athletes won't be treated any differently than the regular student population. And that is something they still have to get tested every now and again. I don't know if it's once a month or once a week, even if they're vaccinated. So there is still some of that going on, but I don't know if anything has really been formally announced.
No, I haven't heard anything official. I do really love the Big Ten turning its homework into a group project. No. You guys have to help us with this because this is we're all in this together. Why don't you guys all tell us what you think the answer is, and then we'll just go with one of those. Maybe that's a way to handle your business. That's a way to really let people know who's in charge. And I do wonder how much of that is a fallout from last year, where it was they were maybe a little too decisive and put themselves at probably a significant competitive advantage even after they did start playing again. So this year may be a little more YOLO than it was in the past. And, I'm sure the vaccination rates on various teams have a lot to do with that. I think Ryan Day said they were north of 90%, something like that. I think you're getting to the point where just about everyone's vaccinated, and you're starting to see a lot of the stuff that's coming out is, even people who are getting vaccinated are not, who are vaccinated, who do end up having some kind of like a breakthrough case. It seems like statistically it's generally very mild, not a huge problem. So if you're at that 90+% rate on your team, odds are you're going to be okay. Have they said yet officially that teams that can't play will forfeit? Was that official yet? I've seen that from a number of other conferences, and I feel like that's sort of inevitable, but I don't know if the Big Ten's actually said that out loud yet.
I have not, Tom, seen that yet. And would it surprise you that the Big Ten has said nothing to the effect? And even when Kevin Warren was asked about it, there was, again, no answer. And it's, you made a good point, though. Like, we shouldn't maybe attack him for not leading when we also attacked him for leading last year. So it's like, right now the guy can't do anything right, but also
agreed. Go on. Yes.
But also he's not doing anything right. So
yeah, there's that. Yeah. It just feels like at some point you have to make a decision. And if you're not making a decision, then you're just kind of like abdicating your role in all of this, which at this point, like, why is there a league? Why is there a conference office? Like if it's just kind of like everyone does their own, it's free time. It's just like study hall. This is like COVID study hall. All you kids do whatever you want. You have to stay here. You need to pass if you want to leave, but you can stay here and do whatever you want. So that's fine. So, okay, cool.
That's Kevin Warren, study hall monitor.
Well, and just do what everyone else is doing. If you don't know what to do what everyone else is doing. It's fine. Like if everyone else is doing, like, copy off of Greg Sankey's paper, that's fine. It very clearly Greg Sankey's got, Greg Sankey is top of the class right now. So just copy off his paper, do what they're doing. And
like, if you're downtown and a bunch of people start running in one direction, run that same direction. Don't wait to see what they're running from. Just go.
Is it going to be an explosion? Is it a dinosaur come back to life? Is it like, doesn't matter? Does it? Yeah. Am I in Pamplona without realizing it? I mean, there are a whole bunch of answers, and pretty much all of them involve run that way. There's an old saying in the military that no one outranks an explosive ordnance person at a full run. No one outranks him when he's doing that. That's what you need to do. If there's an ordnance person run that way. Yeah, there's probably a lesson to be learned there because the Big Ten done blowed itself up pretty good last year. So that's maybe learn from our mistakes, and maybe this is them learning from their mistakes and just kind of abdicating responsibility. No, you didn't like our decision making. Fine, we're not going to make any decisions at all. Yeah, there you go. But as we mentioned, they have a whole week. It'll be fine. We're like they've got a weekend to make decisions before it's a game week for teams in their league playing a league game. Why are you rushing them, Tony? Stop being a jerk.
That will involve possibly like a week or 2 weeks of quarantine time or this needing to be done. And so, but yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, and since when has anything gone badly between Nebraska and the Big Ten before? It'll be fine. Next one from @David Buckeye. Simple. How does the secondary look? And I feel like, Tony, the answer is we're kind of grading it incomplete because we got to watch a practice this week and we didn't have Seven Banks out there and there was no Cam Brown out there. And so I feel like those are going to be two pretty important parts of the secondary. Mm-hmm. The general feedback that we've gotten from coaches, players, insider reports has been the defense has been better. The defense has been competitive with the offense. They've been making plays. Ryan Day talked about, multiple 3-and-outs during last week and during some of the scrimmages. I mean, that's encouraging, unless it means the offense is bad. Is the offense bad, Tony? Tony, is the offense bad? Is that what that means? I don't know.
I was impressed. The defense felt like they were winning plenty on Wednesday, whenever that was. I felt like the defense was doing a good job. But yeah, I don't know. And Seven Banks was out there a little bit, but he was with the twos. And so obviously that means nothing. And then you're looking, and Ronnie Hickman is ahead of Craig Young. And does that mean anything? And you're trying to make all of these things make sense, but they won't until we actually see what they do on the field. And I don't know if we'll even know after Minnesota, based on what they've got.
Yeah, Minnesota's not going to challenge the pass defense the way that Oregon might later, and the week after that, and then you get past that, and it's like Tulsa's probably no, Akron probably no, Rutgers probably no. I mean, like if you don't have bad news after Oregon, you're not going to have bad news until maybe the middle of of October at the earliest. But it seems like there's enough positive stuff coming out. And, they've talked up Denzel Burke a bunch as someone who may be kind of a solution or at least a depth piece there. We have been at times pretty impressed with legend Cavazos, Brian Watts. We have been shockingly impressed with Demario McCall. And I still don't know, I don't know if Demario McCall is a starter or anything. I'm not anticipating that, but it's like he may be a viable piece for them somewhere. Lathan Ransom is, I think you should be feeling better about Lathan Ransom than you did last year. And he was off to a pretty good start. Josh Proctor, the reports on Josh Proctor have been encouraging this year. It should be better than last year, both in terms of quantity of players available and quality of players available. So, I think you should feel reasonably good. But again, like I feel like it's still kind of, you still need to grade them incomplete.
And if, say, Josh Proctor does have issues against Minnesota, that is a concern. That's like, if they don't play well, that is a concern. And we will learn something from that. And again, we can't overstate the importance of the free safety position playing well. And you don't need to play against talented teams to play poorly. Like if you're not very good, it'll show. Like, if you shouldn't be starting, it may show up pretty quickly in that role, in that free safety role. The corners can, I think, grow into what they're going to be. And because you may be talking about the teams, like, is Indiana the first team that may, test them? And that's like October 23rd through the air. And Penix is not an accurate guy at times. Like he can be up and down. So I don't even know Purdue, which is like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. Like they're not going to be tested through the air in the Big Ten until, of course, November 27th when they go to Michigan to face Alan Bowman. But I think they're going to be the Big Ten. The secondary will be fine during the Big Ten, but I think that's understood, and that's not the important part. Even though obviously you want to win the Big Ten, but I think having that entire time to get better will get them better.
Next one from @StraightNoChaser, and it's straight with an 8 and Chaser with a Z instead of an S. Which is what happens. That's how you type when you had a bunch of things straight with no chaser. Will TreVeyon Henderson go over or under 1,000 yards rushing? I feel like we probably have answered this question a couple of times during the offseason, but my answer has changed over the course of the offseason. So as we keep getting closer to the season and as we keep hearing reports of TreVeyon Henderson and as we keep seeing TreVeyon Henderson in practice, it's like I think, probably back in April going, no. I think it's, 3 guys in the 600 to 800 yard range. And that's probably about right. Over. I'll take the over. I think, you go 14, 15 games. You don't need to do that much to be over 1,000 yards if you're playing 14, 15 games. And, there's still, the carries are going to get divided to a certain degree, but as the big play guy who is also working his way up that depth chart, which means he is more and more likely to play. And as the season goes along, he's probably going to continue to move forward on that ladder. I think you kind of have to go over at this point until proven otherwise. Like if he's healthy, how likely is he to go over 1,000 yards in your mind, percentage wise, if he's healthy all season?
For me, it's over 50%. And so that's why I would go the over, because he won't need a lot of carries and he won't need many yards. 72 yards a game in a 14 game schedule is all he will need to go over 1,000 yards. And how many carries is that in a game? 11. Like he's going to average 6.5, 7 yards a carry, close to that, like 6.5. So you're talking 11 carries a game. And that's all it would take in my mind for him to hit 1,000 yards. I don't know if he'll have 11 from the outset. It may start out like 8, but then grow by the end of the season. I mean, is he averaging 14, 15 carries a game and raising the early season average up? And yeah, it's probably foolish on our part, but I'm going over 1,000 yards because I think he doesn't need a lot of opportunities to do it. And he's probably going to earn more opportunities as the season goes on. And now, Tom, after we revisit this, and he's rushed for 430 yards, by December, we'll be like, well, we fell victim to believing what we saw. It's not about the hype. It's about what we've seen and what we've heard. And it's not, again, it's not our fault. This would be TreVeyon Henderson hitting that freshman wall and causing him to fall short of what he should have done.
And, you know, when the hype and what you see in person all kind of points to the same thing, that is when I generally really buy into it. There's times there's guys we hear about who, you know, guys are talking up, and, you know, I kind of look at you during practice and go like, I'm not really seeing it here. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying this can't happen, but I don't really see it. TreVeyon Henderson, like, yep, I see it. I get it. Next one from @Todd UND 0570479. Without marked improvement, is this Kerry Combs' last chance? Tony, take it away.
Well, I mean, what is marked improvement? Is improvement good enough? Do they have to be top 20 or top 30 pass defense? I think there does need to be market improvement if he's going to keep the defensive coordinator job. And I don't know that there would be a job that he could fall back to, since that's Matt Barnes' job now. So I don't know that. I guess I do think it's his last chance. If this is not a good defense, then Ryan Day is going to do something else, because you can't continue to, and I don't want to say waste the talent, but not take full advantage of the talent that you've recruited. Now, defensively, I don't know that the talent is as high as offensively in terms of maybe the back seven. And so that has to be factored in. I don't know how much last season really counts against a guy. But again, this is kind of like the Quinn Ewers thing. Like, when does the timeline actually start? And like the Quinn Ewers timeline shouldn't start this year, but by next year, it'll have been 2 years. Like, I don't think you should hold Kerry Combs responsible for last year, but if it happens again this year, that's still 2 years. And that's tough to erase that 2020 season. So I don't think Ryan Day is going to be very patient beyond this season, but I also think the defense is going to be much better.
I would agree with both of those. Yeah, I think, you know, you do have to show him a little bit of leeway for last year, because he came in to a defense that, you know, the corner issues they had last year were not a function of anything that he did wrong. There were some recruiting misses while he was gone, while he was off in the NFL, that really kind of came home to roost last year. And you had, you know, some injuries, and you had the weird season, and, you know, all of that added up to a really abnormally bad season. You kind of give him a mulligan for that, or you at least kind of can you know, excuse it a little bit. Now it's yours. Now you can't, you know, Ryan Day is not going to spend, you know, another year watching his offense score 40 points and then wondering, is that going to be enough or not? 40 points should be more than enough pretty much every game. If you score 40 points, I mean, Ohio State has scored 35 points and lost once in its history, and they scored exactly 35 points in that game, and they tied once in their history. If you score 40 points, you should win. You should not have to be worried about, is that going to be enough? Is this going to hold up? If you have another season where you're looking at a bunch of 42-35s, like, yeah, that's probably not going to fly. There probably will have to make a change. I'm with you, though. I don't think you're going to see that this year. This is not going to be the 2019 Ohio State defense that's just like locking people down all season, but it kind of doesn't have to be. If they are 20th in the country in pass defense, 25th, 30th, that's all probably fine. That's enough improvement that I don't think you're going to see an issue. And Kerry Combs has plenty of job security at that point. You can't be 60th or 70th or whatever they were. I mean, there were metrics where they were like 100 and something last year, which is like, that is no bueno with the amount of talent on this team. And, you know, some of the teams you're playing, like, you're not playing, you know, air raid teams every week where it's like, oh, well, of course they're throwing the ball all over you because they throw the ball. Like, no. This is not, you know, those vintage Mike Leach, Texas Tech teams. Like, no, you were getting thrown on by teams that were not throwing on other teams last year. And that's when you know it's a problem. So, but I'm with you on both sides of that. If it's bad like that again, you probably have to make a change, but I do not expect it to be bad like that again this fall.
They were 87th in pass efficiency defense last year, and that's not very good. And but then also, hey, what about the position coaches? Like, are they getting the job done? I mean, it's not all on just the defensive coordinator. What's the situation with everybody else? Is Larry Johnson doing his job? I mean, come on, let's hold everybody responsible. Is Larry Johnson getting anything out of this defensive line? No, he never does.
Famously bad at recruiting and development, Larry Johnson. Yes, that's and I don't know why we even need to say that out loud. Every Ohio State fan knows this. This is just next one from @Chris_Estes1. This is a 3-parter. We'll go one at a time. Do you think the reconfigured offensive line goes to Minnesota intact, or does Thayer Munford go back to tackle? I don't think those are the two choices. I think, does the reconfigured offensive line go to Minnesota intact, or does Thayer Munford not play against Minnesota for injury reasons, and Matt Jones is the left guard? I feel like those two are the actual two choices there.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about this a couple of shows back in last week or the week before about they're so invested now in this, and they've done this for so long now, that this reconfigured offensive line, that this is who they are. This is what they've become. And Nick Petit-Frere is now the left tackle, and Dwan Jones is now the right tackle. And so you're not going to interrupt all of that again to, get Thayer Munford back to left tackle, because he's now the left guard. And if he's not healthy, then he's not playing. It's Matt Jones. So I'm with you. I think that the offensive line, as we've seen it, is how it is. Nick Petit-Frere at left tackle, Matt Jones or Thayer Munford at left guard, Harry Miller at center, Paris Johnson at right guard, and Dwan Jones at right tackle. That's the offensive line. And if it comes out any differently than that, that will be a surprise to me. And it would have to have been starting like now and then finishing up on Saturday with the scrimmage, whenever we know. Now I've let people know that we're recording this show a little early, or maybe we're not. I don't even know what day we're releasing this down.
We're releasing it on Friday.
Okay, then good. Now we're locked in. So
I didn't say which Friday.
Yeah, true.
We did talk about the fact that the week 0 was 8 days away, so we are pretty much locked in. Yes.
All right. Good. And so they're going to have to change it quickly, and I don't think that's happening. I'm with you. It's going to be that reconfigured line, and I guess for now, Tom, it's the configured line.
It's just the line.
Oh, okay.
Next one, will we see the Rushmen package early in the season? Will Larry Johnson save it for later? I mean, Larry Johnson talked about the fact that he didn't really think they were going to need it much or use it much against Minnesota, but you're going to use it. I mean, if it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, probably, you're probably going to see the Rushmen package. You may not see it as much as you do later in the season, because Minnesota is a much more ground-based team, and Minnesota is going to do their very best to get into 3rd and 3 instead of 3rd and 8. And if it's 3rd and 3, you're not going to see it. But yeah, it's not something that they're going to just hold off on doing at all. And the makeup of it may change, at least to some degree, throughout the course of the season. If you have a Jack Sawyer who's going to earn his way into that, or JT Tuimoloau who might earn his way into that, or whoever, the makeup, the configuration of those 4 guys may change throughout the course of the season. But you'll see it to at least some degree against Minnesota.
And even if they haven't worked on it much or don't work on it much, Zach Harrison has moved inside before. Tyreek Smith has moved inside before. I wouldn't expect either of the freshmen to do that. That's where you just leave them on the edge and point them at the quarterback. You also have 2 very good defensive tackles who can get into the backfield, and Teron Vincent and Haskell Garrett. So maybe that's another reason why you won't need it as much against Minnesota. You're really going to want to stop the run. But I agree. When it's 3rd and long, they are going to, Zach Harrison or Tyreek Smith is going to move in a little bit here and there, just to get their, just to get a taste of it and show what they can do, and also maybe to obviously increase the pass rush and make some noise in there. But yeah, I expect it. But as Larry Johnson said, why would you need it too much? And I still think they're working on getting it situated and figuring out who all they want in there. Zach Harrison, we know, was banged up a little bit, was out this past week for at least one practice. So you also wonder how healthy they are to be able practicing that right now as well.
Last one, and I'm going to let you answer this one first. Which QB will replace Stroud at Minnesota if Ohio State's up by enough in the second half?
For me, it's Kyle McCord. I think he has taken over that job, although Jack Miller was the first guy in last year, even though everybody believed CJ Stroud was the backup, which eventually came to be true. And yet it was still Jack Miller taking that first rep. I think now, however, it will be Kyle McCord. I think the opportunity for him to play, like Jack Miller has played, Kyle McCord has not played. So in that way, you could say, well, we wanted to get Kyle McCord some time. And, Jack Miller has played. We wanted to give Kyle McCord his first action. That way, everybody on the team has had played in a real game. I think that can give you that can be like plausible deniability for your backup for at least a week or so. And you're saying, well, we just wanted to get everybody in there so that they could have some action. So I think it will be Kyle McCord. I don't know that you'll see him against Minnesota, though.
That's an interesting point, because how far up are they actually going to be against Minnesota? I think there's a possibility you're only up by 10, 14 points towards the end of the game. And the line, I think, is 14. So that's about what you'd expect. And if you're up by 14 points, like, you probably have that starter in there the whole way. I think I've changed my mind on this question like 3 times since you started talking, where it was like, well, can they do the, courtesy play the guy who is actually third to keep him interested with a big game on deck next week against Oregon? But last year, week 2 was at Penn State, and they did it against Nebraska. So yeah, I don't know that I have a real great answer either way on that one. It's a little bit, it's like I can kind of see both answers, and I feel much more strongly about who's going to be the second quarterback in mid-October than I do about who's going to be the second quarterback in week 1, week 2, week 3. Right. Next one from @BG_SGP. I heard James Laurinaitis say that Denzel Burke should start. Has he been as good as the rumors say he is?
That is interesting, because I haven't heard that from James Laurinaitis, but everything we've seen from Denzel Burke is good, and he was very impressive in the open practice that we got to see. And I don't recall seeing James Laurinaitis there, so he's probably been at other practices and he has his own intel. And we have never heard one bad thing about Denzel Burke from sources, from coaches, from teammates. So he's one of those guys that played mostly receiver in high school, played a little bit of defensive back, didn't get to visit Ohio State. The coaches didn't get to see as much of him as they wanted, but clearly they saw enough to offer him and to accept his commitment, and he has not let them down. And you almost wonder, like, what exactly did you see that where you knew that you could take him and essentially gamble on him? And now we're seeing the results of that. And he got in here in the winter. He was good in the spring. He's running with the 1s and 2s. Now, should he start? I mean, he's healthy, which has been a problem for a lot of these quarterbacks at Ohio State. And so he's got that. The availability is good for him. I don't know. I would not be shocked at some point if he starts this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's, works his way into like a 4-man rotation or even a 3-man rotation. I don't know if he's there yet, but he's a guy that just makes plays, and he's just always near the ball and he's involved.
Yeah, and if there's questions about Seven Banks or Cam Brown, there may be an opportunity there if those guys are not able to be fully healthy for the season. But it's always hard for me to envision a true freshman corner starting. That's asking a lot. And you go back over the years, it just doesn't happen very much. You get true freshman running back sometimes. You get true freshman wide receiver sometimes, like cornerback, offensive line. These are tough places to do that. It's very much easier to be an edge rusher, like a Jack Sawyer as a true freshman than a corner. You go back and it's like Jeff Okudah did it in 2017, but that was at the very end of the season. He'd been in for the spring and, all that stuff. And that took Denzel Ward not playing in the Cotton Bowl against USC to make that happen. So I think it's difficult for me to say that a true freshman should start or that you should expect a true freshman to start. But, again, when all the reports coming out are kind of matching what we're seeing when we're in practice, you have to put some weight on that. And so I do expect him to be a contributor this year. Starting, that may be a bridge too far, but we'll see. Next one from Lawrence DeBrin too. How is Court Williams looking? Will he be starting at safety? And Court Williams, we've seen him out there. We've seen him. I don't expect him to start at safety. He has been the topic of a lot of linguistic analysis over the course of this, of the summer. And, is he a safety? Is he a bullet? I feel like he's a bullet. Even if they talk about him as a safety, I feel like he's still going to slot in as a bullet, but he could be either. Wherever he is, I don't expect him to start, though. I mean, I think you've got Josh Proctor, probably Lathan Ransom, and then some combination of Ronnie Hickman and Craig Young probably at the bullet spot is where I would expect it right now. He's someone who's going to contribute. He's someone who's going to be a starter longer term. I don't think that happens this fall, though. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I am incredibly intrigued to find out what they do with him this year, because I do think he's going to play some. Does he replace a linebacker in a dime, basically, where they have Ronnie Hickman and Craig Young and Court Williams, or Court Williams and Ronnie Hickman, to where, Tom, I know one bullet in a defense is cool, but it's even cooler than one bullet? Two bullets. And so, maybe you get some more mobility out there. And again, this is more of the positionless stuff. It's like, well, let's just put Court Williams, say, here, just somewhere on the field, and let him, obviously he's going to have his assignments and things like that, but doesn't really fall into the safety or the bullet or the linebacker. It's just like, this is your area of the field. Let's call you the landlord, and you handle that. You're the maintenance guy. You just do upkeep, that sort of thing. Make sure plumbing is working, and all of that good stuff. I really am looking forward to seeing what he can do, because we've heard nothing but great things about him. Right now, the depth chart is not his friend, but I still think he's going to be somewhere. And what is that? 10 or 15 snaps a game, 8 to 12, something like that. Maybe more, 8 to 12. But let's see what he can do in those limited reps to earn more reps.
And it may depend on who they're playing to and what kind of offense are you playing. And I mean, I think that's going to be true of a lot of those bullets. Like, is it a Craig Young game? Is it a Ronnie Hickman game? Is it a Court Williams game? That may depend on who you're playing. So that's there's a lot of variables that go into it here. But yeah, I'm not expecting to start, but I am expecting to see him on the field for 8, 10, 12 snaps. That's probably a pretty good guess. Last one from @ReedTeatsorth. How long do you think the leash is on Stroud, assuming he starts the first game at Minnesota? Would 2 3-and-outs and a 2 interception on his first 4 drives be it for the day for him, in your opinion? That goes for any of the other quarterbacks too. It feels like he's been so consistently ahead that they're not going to yank him after a bad first quarter necessarily. Or, you pull him for a drive and then you tell him, we're going to pull you for a drive, let you just kind of take a deep breath and then go back in there. I don't think I see that happening, because it's not like this has been this crazy back and forth horse race the whole season. And, and now Jack Miller's in front, and now Kyle McCord's in front, and now CJ Stroud's in front. It's just been like, you go back to like the Michigan State game last year. Who was the first guy that came in? CJ Stroud. You go back to the Clemson game last year when Justin Fields got speared and had to go out for a play. Who came in? CJ Stroud. Who was taking the first team reps all spring? CJ Stroud. Who was the first, who was the first team quarterback all summer? CJ Stroud. This has been CJ Stroud's job. It has felt like almost inevitably going all the way back there. So this is not like he had a good week in fall camp and won the job. This is like he has been the guy who's been ahead for long enough that I think his leash is longer than a typical first-time starter, especially a typical first-time freshman starter. If he goes out and just completely stinks it up, do they pull him and give someone else a drive or two? Maybe. And then, if he has 2 interceptions in his first 3 drives, and then Kyle McCord or Jack Miller comes in and just immediately marches him down the field for a touchdown or 2, like at that point, like, okay, then it's a conversation. But I don't really see that happening. What about you?
Well, I think if you go 2 3-and-outs and 2 interceptions, you need to sit for a series. Almost no matter who you are. If you're Justin Fields, you need to sit just to evaluate and be talked to and say, hey, what are you seeing? What's going on? Did you not get any rest last night? Did you eat something this morning that you shouldn't have? Like, what is going on? What's wrong with you? Is there something going on at home? Just to figure out what is happening. And also, this is on the road in the Big Ten. Like, you can't go 5 drives with nothing and then maybe 6 drives. So like, you don't want to throw a 3rd interception. Chances are, like, the more interceptions you throw, your odds of winning go down. And so you need to figure something out right there. So I would agree that, no, I don't think he would be done, but I think you need to just Now, he may be done if they pull him for a series and then Jack Miller or Kyle McCord goes right down the field. And then they're like, well, now we got to try it again, right? And if they go right down the field again, do you get Wally pipped in that situation, even though you're not being hurt, you're just playing poorly? That's one of my questions that I have with this, because yes, you want to give him confidence. You don't want to take away that confidence, but you also have to win the game. But I think you're right in the fact that this has kind of always been where CJ Stroud has been. And so I think even if he got yanked for a series or 2 or 3, he's not going to lose the thought that, gosh, now I have to look over my shoulder, because he has said that he always views himself as the third guy, or like he's not in the lead. And so that's how he operates. And I think that mentality would actually help in that situation.
Yeah, I think that the big takeaway there is not that it's impossible for that to happen, but just that even if it does happen and they take him off the field, they're probably taking him off the field with the mentality of this is for a drive or two to kind of clear your head. And then if circumstances change, then maybe it becomes a longer term thing. But, I don't know how likely it is that I think at that point, like, you're running the ball. Like you can also just run the ball at Minnesota. That may be the solution. If CJ Stroud comes out and throws a pick in the first drive, you come back out, you run the ball, you give him a nice, easy, give him some nice, easy throws, nice, easy swing pass to TreVeyon Henderson, something like that. Get him, just kind of get his feet under him, get his confidence back up a little bit. You have a running game you can probably lean on in a lot of Big Ten games this year. I feel like you're not probably going to get to the point where he's throwing 3 picks in 4 drives or anything like that, because they're not going to put him in that position. They're going to lean on the running game, give him nice, easy throws, not make him try and fit something into a narrow window down the field. You have other options there.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else, Tom, before we get out of here for this episode?
I think that's good. As Tony suggested earlier, or hinted around earlier, we're going to have a bunch more shows coming up because football season is nigh. Football season is close. So we will, we're going to have Buckeye Weekly is going to turn into not quite Buckeye Daily, but we're getting there at this point. So keep refreshing that podcast feed, because we are going to keep the content coming into your ear holes pretty frequently.
Yep. And starting this coming week, we will dive into Michigan on our Michigan Monday podcast. So that will be fun as well. And I'm sure there'll be some stuff to talk about. We'll see. Who knows? Could be anything. But I want to thank you guys for listening and watching. As a reminder, always check out BuckeyeScoop.com for all of your Ohio State informational needs. If you're not yet a member, now is a great time to become a member. For, as Tom says, the price of a lousy chain store pizza. That's all. That's all. It's not much. And also check us out on youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop, where you can find all of our shows. We're hitting the road, high school football games tonight. Last night, we're going to be putting up some highlight videos of Ohio State prospects and commits and all of that good stuff. So check that out and subscribe there as well. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.